Dear Isabel, I'm so excited for you to join me in the art of bread making. Bread making, in a lot of ways, I find is just like life. You'll fail many times before you succeed. But it is in the process of those failures where you learn not only a lot about the bread, but about yourself. And that's the fun. Although I want you to remember, my way is just one of infinite ways of making bread. And you'll find your own unique way to make your sourdough, and that may change over time. And each one of those is equally valid as this way I'm showing you today. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, so the first things you're gonna need here are your all-purpose flour, your starter, your Lodge Dutch oven, and some proofing baskets. And then I have a timer here for good measure. Of course, you don't need those specific brands. Here's the starter. I affectionately call mine the mother. And she is ready to get fed. This is the night before. This is about 9 p.m. the night before. I'm discarding here about all but 25 grams. Then I'm feeding 100 grams of flour, and then I'm also adding 100 grams of water. And then I'm going to quickly stir those together and make kind of a loose paste, if you will. And that looks like something like this. And then this is the next day, about 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m. I've got my starter is all the way to the top of the brim, looking very well fed and ready to go, ready to roll in to make this bread rise. I've got 700 grams of water in my bowl. That's where I'll start. And then I'll put 200 grams of starter into that water. A good way to know if it's ready to go, if that starter is floating, then you know it's probably ready to rise your bread. So we look like we're in good shape here, so I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna add 900 grams of all-purpose flour. You can also just do 1,000 grams, but I'm gonna actually add 100 grams of whole wheat. So that's 900 grams of all-purpose flour and 100 grams of whole wheat for 1,000 grams of flour total. You could just do all-purpose flour, and that's totally fine for 1,000 grams. And then I'm gonna go ahead and mix it. And this first process is called the autolyse. We're just gonna loosely mix it and let it sit for 30 minutes. And that process is just gonna hydrate the dough, get it ready for the entire process. Here's a very important part I always forget and don't do it, is make sure to add your salt. So you're adding 20 grams of salt here. And then we're really vigorously mixing that in. You're using your fingers, you're pressing it in there, squeezing the dough. It's gonna be sticky, it's gonna stick to your hands. That's something that you just have to deal with. But it should look a little bit something like this. And then we're gonna cover it up again with whatever you have. You can use plastic wrap, I have a nice lid here that fits on my bowl. And then we'll let it sit here for another 30 minutes. Now that we've let it sit for 30 minutes, it's starting to form into a nice dough. What we're gonna do is this process of folding here. So grab a pinch of loaf there, like you're pinching a cheek of one of your nephews, pull it to the max, and then stretch it over. You're not doing anything too vigorous, just kind of these loose folds. I do it in 4 ways, and then I kind of let it go. And then we're gonna let it sit there for 30 more minutes. And then do this same process again. It should be a little bit stronger now, you'll notice, over time, which is great. And so we're gonna stretch and fold and repeat, and I do that. I just keep turning the bowl and doing that for about 4 or 5 times, nothing crazy. And then the final process, I just kind of form it into a little ball that tucks over itself. And then I put it back into the bowl, cover it up. And this time we're gonna let it sit for 3 hours. So now you can see the light is shining because it's been 3 hours in the day. And it's really well proofed. It's really puffed up. That's a great sign that things are happening, things are working. The dough is getting stronger. So I'm gonna push it out onto a lightly floured surface here, and I'm gonna cut it into half. I don't really measure this exactly, I just kind of eyeball it, but you could measure it and weigh it and make sure that you get exactly half. And then we'll tuck each half into a little ball. So you'll notice I just kind of use it's gonna be sticky, but use the surface and tuck it into a little ball. It doesn't have to be super tight, but you just wanna make sure you're creating some surface tension so that it's a nice round top. And then I'm gonna get some dish towels here, and just cover it up so that they don't dry out. And then we're gonna let that sit for 20 minutes just to give the dough some time to relax and come back to form. After that 20 minutes is up, we'll take it out, and then we'll do what's a little bit complicated, but this is the final shaping process. So I pull it out like bat wings, fold it over top of each other, and then kind of take the top and the edges and pinch them in towards the middle, like so. It's a little hard to see with this angle. I should have done a better angle. And then pull in a little bit of the sides, like they've got little arms, and you're just tucking them in just so you can create tension around the dough, and so that it should feel nice and tight. Again, nothing too tight, but nice and firm. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and roll it up from the top down so that you have a nice round bottom, and then put it into the proofing basket seam up. Seam up will give it the nice thing. So I'm going to do that, repeat this process. I wish I had a better angle, but hopefully you can sort of see what's doing. And then seam up again into the baskets. I cover them up with plastic wrap. Some people don't, but I do it at this stage just so they don't dry out. And then I let them sit on the counter for about 90 minutes, and then they go straight into the fridge for overnight. So this is the next morning. This is 9 a.m. that next morning. They've been proofed overnight. They're in the fridge right now. I'm preheating the oven to 500 degrees with my Dutch oven in it, so that both preheat at the same time. So the Dutch oven's really hot. And so we just kind of sit here and wait, kill some time. I know Zig's looking out for me. I maybe played some tunes for him on the guitar. I probably switched instruments. Yep, here we go. Switched over to a banjo. Just waiting for things to heat up. You got some time. So once that oven is up to 500 degrees and the Dutch oven's in there, it's nice and hot, I'm going to go ahead, take my dough out of the fridge. It's been in the fridge again overnight, and I'm going to take it out. I just touched it to test the proof. It seems ready to go. And I'm going to plop it out gently, normally more gently than that, onto the thing. I also like to do some fancy stenciling. This is totally optional. I've got a little powder dispenser for the flour, and I put it over the stencil so it gives it some nice designs. I like doing that. I've been making bread for a while now, so you always kind of find something new. And then for this first score, normally you can just kind of go down the center, but I'm going to do a box, so I make a kind of a square box on the top. I kind of like how that looks. It makes a little chessboard effect. But you'll see, we'll take this parchment paper so that you don't have to touch the sides, and just drop it straight into this ripping hot Dutch oven, and then make sure that lid is on tight, because we want to trap all the moisture in here for this first 18 minutes. So you're going to put it back in that oven, reduce that temperature down to 485 for 18 minutes. This is after that first 18 minutes. I'm pulling it out now, and it looks great. That's that first proof with all the steam. It rose well, looks great. I'm going to reduce the temperature to 465 now, and then let it go for another 25 minutes. And after that gives it a nice dark brown crust. That's a lot of flavor. You want all of that dark brown caramelized crust, and it looks beautiful. So I'm going to repeat the process for the second loaf. This one was a batard shape, not the round boule shape. I have another stencil with some snowflake star type of shape. And then I'm going to just score this one kind of down the middle. I actually kind of come across at an angle. You'll see, just to give it that classic batard sourdough look. Put it back into this ripping hot Dutch oven. Again, 485 for the first 18 with the lid on. And that's trapping the steam and helping it rise. And then you take the lid off, and then after that 18, put it back in for another 25 minutes at 465 with the lid off, and that's what it looks like. You have a beautiful batard with some cool snowflake type shapes. These rose great. They're going to be delicious. They look like they have tons of flavor, nice and brown, and they look beautiful on the counter. Here we go. We can put some flowers in the background, and it's a whole work of art. A lovely, lovely thing to have, and it smells great. One of the things about sourdough you'll love is when you pull them out of the oven, you'll hear the continued crackling of the crust. It just keeps kind of bubbling and crackling away, something that I love to hear after it comes out. But again, these look beautiful, and I took some time to just admire the rise and the depth and the shapes. This one kind of looks like a flower blooming out, and the stenciling looked really pretty on the top. And that one turned out well, and this one, of course, had that nice classic shape. Looks really great. I like the stenciling on the side there too. I kind of like how it faded out on the side. That was my hand, but I'll show you one of my favorite meals here. Is I just toast up a slice of bread. I put some hot pepper paste on there. I've got an avocado that I smash over top of there, just to make sure that covers edge to edge. There's a piece of chicken that I grilled up and cut that into slice, and then I put some goat cheese and some pickled onions that I made. And that's one out of a million ways to make sourdough bread.
I want to remind you that there is no right way. Whatever process you find, whatever changes you make, those are unique to your process and they're just as good as the ones that I did. But hopefully this helped you along your journey, your process of bread making. I want to remind you that failures are a part of the journey. They're going to happen and you should learn to accept them and learn from them and cherish them. They're what makes this process special. That's why you have a triumph at the end, because it's not easy, because you've been through the trials and tribulations of sourdough bread making. So I hope you grow to love this process as much as I do, and that you get to eat your delicious bread. And I look forward to seeing some of your final creations. Good luck.